Hi everyone, welcome to Infinite Being TV. My name is Suma. I'm deeply honored to introduce our guest today, Chris Griscom, an internationally acclaimed spiritual leader and visionary. She was author of 14 books and founder of the Light Institute of Galisteo, New Mexico. She was awarded Sewa Chakra Award by Indian Board for her humanitarian service. Chris has devoted her life to the development of spiritual technology and expansion of consciousness. Thank you so much for coming here.
Oh, it's truly my honor.
Tell us about how you started this spiritual journey.
I think all of us start our spiritual journey by being born. And the experiences we have begin to expand our awareness. A baby is a fully developed soul. It can't speak what it knows. And unfortunately, we forget what we know as we come into how we must be in our culture and our family. But for me, that veil was always open, which I think it is for most children unless something shuts it down. And I had so many powerful cosmic experiences as a child, as all children do. And I was fortunate in that my parents did not close that door for me. And so I was able to move through the dimensions and experience myself as a part of something magical and sacred.
For someone who is new to this subject, how would you explain a multidimensional universe? What are the different dimensions?
Well, of course, we like to say there's so many, because humans always like to put things in a box and say there are 3, there are 12, whatever. But they're infinite dimensions. And the thing about a dimension is that it enfolds, just like universes do. They enfold upon each other. And so we, born of carbon atoms, are the same as the stars. So to think that we have no access to multidimensions is simply that place that wants to squeeze us into the illusion that we're just human. So multidimensional people and worlds are simply that enfolding that allows a cosmic law or an energy from one to sort of move into another. So when we think of humans, again, and we know that we have imagination, and through our imagination we reach out and touch worlds that we think we're imagining, but actually imagination is a window into other dimensions. So it's a hologram, and a hologram is like a circle, but it's multidimensional in that it has many layers. So for example, we in the third dimension are just a veil away from the astral dimension. And the astral dimension is the spirit, is our spirit. It's our astral body that moves out of everyone when we sleep at night. When we talk about dreams, we're talking about multidimensional experiences. And so we have that in so many ways throughout our life. And as we become more conscious and as our evolution quickens, we'll be able to use that in a bigger arena than we have before. Rather than just one person's dreams, we can, as we do in movies, we can introduce that possibility into the world. And then, as we reach into that multidimensionality, we'll be able to pull to ourselves information that changes our perception of what it is to be human.
And what is it like to be a multidimensional being?
I think it's, for some people, probably for everyone, sometimes it's very scary. If a child is not told that they are moving out of their body in dreams, or they're looking down at their body, or that they are seeing energies in other people, or that they know what's going to happen, it's confusing to a child. And that's what causes it to shut down. But what is it like? It's an adventure. It opens up the recognition that the purpose of our incarnation of the soul is the evolution of that soul. And so we must reach into new ways. And right now, the challenges on the planet are really calling to us to do that. We must learn to listen to the animals and to nature so that we ourselves can survive as a species. This is not a fantasy. It's not unscientific. It's something that's really showing humans that we are a part of something bigger and that we have to pay attention, not just to the individuation of the self or our culture or our societies, but that we're global beings. We are spiritual family.
And I could be getting semantic here, but is being multi-dimensional being, is it same as being a light body?
That's one aspect of it. That's one aspect. If we were to think about our spiritual form, we would be talking about the light body. The astral body is kind of a light body, but it looks just like our own. And these are things that we can see and we can experience. And so we have a light body, we have a primordial body that's holding all of the imprints from the beginning of humanity. So we have the light body, the other part of that spectrum is the primordial body. We have the mind body, the spiritual body. We have so many multidimensional bodies that influence our sense of self and our experience in the world. So semantics, again, if we focused in any particular dimension of that multidimensionality, it would describe a reality that changes the third dimension, or let us say simply our mind perception.
And what are the other galactic beings in the universe that we are aware of as humanity?
What's really wonderful is that we are beginning to recognize that that's not just something from a movie. In fact, it's something that all humans have within their repertoire. In my books, I talk about the fact that we have not only human DNA, but we have devic DNA, which is the structure, the genetic structure of all of nature. We have angelic DNA, and we have galactic DNA. So first of all, let's talk about that for a second. Of course we are galactic because we're part of a galaxy. We're made of carbon atoms, as are the stars, as are the rocks, as are the plants and the animals. So that is a threshold to an expanded awareness. Galactic beings are of many groups, just like humans are. They come from many different dimensions, galaxies, universes. Some are more advanced, most are more advanced than ourselves, some are less. But what's exciting now is that science is beginning to know what we know, which is that they have always been there, and that human civilizations have grown in leaps and jumps because of galactic connections. In India, for example, more than 5,000 years ago, the Vedas spoke specifically about the use of light, about energy that used light. They described UFOs or spaceships, and they had some that were solar. This was written 5,000 years ago, and yet they described it perfectly. And we haven't gotten there yet, but we will.
And as per your experience, do you think they have a physical body, or is it just an energy?
They have a physical body. Many of those civilizations can use the laws of materialization and dematerialization. So they can come in a body. They might come in a body that looks like you. But that may be something that they've presented almost like a hologram so that you can be comfortable. And then they may have many other kinds of bodies. Lifetimes for them may be very different than ours. I have personally had many experiences. And so for me, it's not a conversation, is this real? But how can we use it? When I was young, I thought the purpose of my life was to find a place, and I looked all over Arizona actually, where we could bring the best and the brightest of humans together with galactics so that we could resolve some of our, especially our energy difficulties. And then ultimately I realized it's not about a place. It's about a place in consciousness that allows that. And so we are really coming closer and closer. Look at the movies that we're seeing today. I'm a little annoyed with them because they just can't resist making galactics look like sticky octopuses or something like that, you know, or negative human kind of things, instead of beings that we could actually communicate with and enhance our own evolution.
do some of them have chosen a definitive physical form, like us human bodies, we have a definitive form?
Yes.
Do some of the ETs have they chosen?
Yes,
That?
yes. Even though they may have a physical body that looks somewhat like human, it may live for many generations. It may not die the way ours do. It may not function at all like ours do, certainly not mentally, because most of them have collective consciousness. So they don't have to speak to each other. You know, they have different ways of that kind of communication. But now, one of the most important experiences that I had once was with a UFO that looked like a UFO. I'd seen it many times, and so had other people in the town of Galisteo. And once it hovered right over my house, and I had actually, with my consciousness, looked in a couple of times. And one time, I was pulled in, and there were 4 people, and they looked just like us. Exactly like us. I still do not know if that's their permanent form. I think it is. They were from the Pleiades, and they showed me a map of the world, and they showed me where humans were being killed by the thousands and in group graves. And they showed me a way to help the earth. Because what they said is that when those kinds of things happen, it pollutes the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that we needed to lift the spirits out. And I, afterwards, it was such a shocking experience, I kind of said, well, maybe I dreamt it. And about 3 months later, it came out on television, exactly the place that they had told me, and they showed the pictures of it. And then I began to say, okay, now I'm going to tell the world what I was taught, how to lift spirits that have died in tragedy and in violence up out of the earth, so that the earth itself is not poisoned. I feel that a lot of the violence we have, for example, in the Middle East today, is because there's so much bloodshed there from thousands of years ago. And so what's happening is the earth herself is trying to release that to help us go to the next level. So it looks like we've gone back to it, really, but we're not. We're just being exposed to it so that we can use the advancement of our consciousness to clear that, to heal that, and to go to the next level. We cannot continue to kill each other in that way.
How do we clear that energy? How can we as an individual contribute towards?
We can very easily, and I love that you asked me this question, because we can use it even on an individual basis. You know, when someone dies in your family, certainly in many traditions we feel, for example, I just returned from Asia where there's a lot of respect for the elders, you know, and so we entrap them. We entrap their spirits. We keep their pictures. We pray to them. We try to keep them alive emotionally and in our world, instead of receiving from them the what I call psychogenetic inheritance, which is how they've imprinted us in levels that help our evolution, and then release them. So the technology of consciousness that was given to me is very simple. We are made of light. Everything on earth, everything that's material, is made of light ultimately. And so what we do is we imagine that we draw white light from the cosmos, never from the self, from the cosmos down through the top of the head into this solar plexus stomach area. This is the center of the emotional body. And of course, death creates a lot of emotion. And from that, we laser out and we make a very wide avenue of white light. Then we connect with the spirit. People think it's difficult, but it's really not. Children do it all the time, and many people do. And you could just imagine, for example, let's say it was an uncle or something, or a grandfather, and then you would hold them in your mind's eye, and you would call to them. And then you would show them this avenue of white light and say, get on this avenue. Now what I've found doing this, and I've done it all over the world with groups and individuals, is that, first of all, the spirits are caught in the moment of their death. So if it were a violent death, they don't have any awareness of you. You can pierce through and they will then tell you about their death. They will repeat the experience. And then I always use a very human perspective, which is Get on the avenue of white light and go home to those that are waiting for you, who love you. Because their human self needs that point of reference. You know, that they are loved, that there is a place of safety, that they have family. Of course, for me, that family might be from many other lifetimes, not just this lifetime. But that always works. And then the spirit goes into that avenue of white light and is released out. And this frees the earth, and it frees their soul.
So we need a new way of looking at death.
We do indeed. You know, again, a huge percentage of the population of Earth now feel that we have more than one lifetime. Incarnations of the soul. And so when we begin to experience that or even recognize that, it helps us to know that the body disintegrates, but consciousness never dies. It's a cosmic law. It's a scientific law. Energy never dies. It just changes form. And so when we die, we shed this. We shed this. But the consciousness goes on. And when we recognize that, it helps us to let go of someone. Because if you entrap because of your culture or because you feel that you owe something to someone, maybe you never got to say what you should have said or rebalance the relationship. And so you feel guilt or you feel some kind of requirement to hold that. When in actuality, that person who has passed from their body needs to be released into the light so that at some point they can reincarnate, so that they can be free of all of the entanglement that we have and that we bring together lifetime after lifetime. I always say that we choose our parents. We definitely do. And we travel again and again with them. So for me, when people come to the Light Institute to look at their own lifetimes, I work with scientists, I work with people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter if they actually believe in reincarnation. What's wonderful is that they always come up with lifetimes. It doesn't matter whether they think they're imagining it. What happens is, as they come up with the lifetimes, they see that that lifetime is going on now. With the same people, the same themes, that they are learning, that they are polishing for the purpose of the evolution of the soul. So yes, we need to free ourselves from our fear of death, because we will go on. And to know that as we go on, we will evolve. We will be better humans. We will be in contact with our divinity, with that energy which is a part of the cosmos.
So instead of looking at death as the end of everything, look at it as a transformation into a new energy.
It is. And I have had and I would say now, originally when I was young, I might not have said it quite this way, but I would say now that I have had the honor of being with more than hundreds of deaths. It started when I was very young in the Peace Corps and in the Central America, where something like, at that time, 70 to 80% of babies died within the first year. Most of them died within the first month because of umbilical tetanus. And so I held a lot of babies that died in my arms. And that's where I really learned that the soul goes on. I saw the soul leave the body. There is an explosion of light. So there's a dying process of the cellular level, but the conscious level, the soul level, explodes into light. And that's a new beginning.
And I feel like there's a lot of challenge with many cultures, because it's usually with the culture where they attach death with a lot of sadness and
Yes.
mourning. It almost calls for a new...
It does. It does. And to recognize that, for example, we're the sorrowful ones. We're the ones that are left behind. And all humans, somewhere in their genetic encoding, long for that cosmic energy. They long for their divine source. They do. And whether that's been imprinted through many generations in their cultures, that being a human is punishment, school, or not. But when we can come to a place of realizing that to way to honor someone who dies is to celebrate their lives. So I often participate as an officiant at what you might call funerals or the passage of death. And one of the things that I always say to people is, think for a moment the quality that that person had that most inspires you, their best quality. And know that as you think of that quality, that you will now inherit that quality. And that's called legacy. That's how someone lives on. Not through their body or the picture that you have of them, but because they will transfer into you that quality. And it is truly amazing that that happens. And so when people begin to think of it in that way, the loss is different. And we can celebrate they're free. Unfortunately, up until this time, and I don't think it'll happen in the future, but we die poorly. We die of disease. We die of old age. We die of pain. We die in accidents. And I don't think that's the highest possibility for humans. And so when someone is free of that, especially if they die from a disease, it's a great blessing to them. And so I always say to people when someone has died in disease or in a sad way, celebrate their freedom, because they are still conscious. And they will go on from just the consciousness of this small world, and they will go back to or beyond to themselves as multidimensional, holographic energies, cosmic energies.
I love that, to celebrate their presence instead of attaching it to sadness and mourning.
Yeah, because they're not sorrowful, they're free. I'll give you a little example of that on a personal level. When my mother died, I was in the kitchen and I was about to go out and do some incarnational work with someone. And suddenly I felt her spirit, and it was doing somersaults in the kitchen. And I looked up and I saw this light, just as if you could see a light spinning around like that. And it was doing that, and I looked up, and as I looked at that, I thought, my mother has died. And at that moment, my sister called and said, Mother just passed away. I said, yeah, she's in my kitchen. And so at that moment, I got to celebrate with her. You see, she was doing somersaults. She was so happy to be free of her body. And she'd come to me because she knew that I would celebrate with her. And then, instead of my heart being broken, I went out and did my work. I did the purpose of my life, and at the same time, I had this very uplifted energy. I think I did a really good job on my session there, because I had just accessed a truth, that my mother was free. And then, of course, I used that technology of consciousness. What is it that I love the most about my mother? That she gave to me. And that has transmitted to me since that time. And I'm a better person because I have received psychogenetically that gift, or those many gifts, from my mother.
And I also intuitively feel that we are always connected, even if somebody dies. It's not, your connection with them is still alive.
Yes, and we humans have to understand, we need to begin to experience that we do have more than one opportunity to be in body and experience life in new ways. And so the more that we can access that and free everyone, instead of feeling that we have to hold on to them. The reason we hold on to them outside of our cultures and our family structure is because we identify through them. And so it's time for humans to expand our sense of self, our identity, into galactic energies, into angelic, into devic energies, into finding yourself, and know that all energies are connected to the whole.
Thank you, Gris.
My pleasure.
What is the difference between multi-incarnation and reincarnation?
Well, it's simply, reincarnation is the same word. Multi-incarnation is just a way of pinpointing that you have more than one. You don't just come back, and I would say it this way. Reincarnation might give you the idea, talking about semantics, that you reincarnate as if you were going to reincarnate the same as you are now. But you are half your mother and half your father, so you're not going to always reincarnate as a woman. You're going to reincarnate as a male, you're going to reincarnate as a galactic, you're going to reincarnate in other planets, etc., etc. So multi-incarnation means more than one incarnation, but it allows that sense of, freedom of the way that you choose to return. And we return not just to repeat and repeat and repeat, but to take with us things that we have learned or things that need to be released and go on from there. That's what evolution of the soul is about. And so they're the same in some ways, but the important thing is to allow yourself to imagine that you have come again. It will help you. In our work, by the time someone has seen maybe 5 or 10 of their deaths, they really lose their fear of death. Even if they died violently in one lifetime, the next lifetime they might simply go to sleep. And so we would always want to release that particular lifetime, but imprint the capacity to just let go of your body without suffering, without pain, without fear. Just let go, because you'll still be there. But you won't be there with only your frame of reference of your family, your culture, those things. You will be there as a conscious being, which is so much more.
Does it also mean that we are living multiple lifetimes at the same time?
Yes. Now there's a complicated and yet simple conversation. And it's especially true of people who whose names pass down through history. They are conglomerate. In other words, there are other soul friends that piggyback onto their experience as a soul so that they can advance their own evolution. And so that's one way to look at that. And the other way to look at that is that, yes, we can have multiple experiences in one lifetime. There's not another one of you, Suma, wandering around on the planet. But there is very likely, I would say, probably of the people I've worked with, which is more than 60 years of incarnational work, by the way, that at least 70 to 80% of them at some point.
So do you think all these lifetimes are happening at the same time? Okay.
So that's a kind of a different question, actually. Time as we know it is not the way it works in the universe. So on one level, we could say that we have simultaneous lifetimes. That's one aspect of that, which would mean that here you are, but that there's another part of your soul that's living an incarnation. It would never be in human form. It would not be on Earth, but you might have a galactic part of you that's living another lifetime. So that's a simultaneous lifetime that I would say 70 to 80% of the people that I've worked with for 61 years, have. And the other aspect of that is that we think of past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. It's our own illusion, really, in that what's happened 2,000 years ago, if you were in body 2,000 years ago, the thought forms that you had, the imprints that you have, would carry over to now. So you might even be living this lifetime with people that you've lived with in other lifetimes. So in that way it's simultaneous, and ultimately all lifetimes impinge upon each other. Again, when we talk about multidimensionality, it's like strata. There's layers upon layers upon layers, and this is true. So our time framework isn't really accurate. Yes, we can plot that this happened 2,000 years ago or 200 years ago, and it was this way. But energetically and cosmically, there's so many other things unfolding. For example, how could people 5,000 years ago know things that we're just beginning to know now?
So how would you explain the concept of time to someone who might be skeptic, and how would you explain that time is not linear?
Yeah. My first book was called Time is an Illusion.
Yeah.
And I talk about the curvature of time. And that simply means that the past connects to the future through the present. So that all incarnation or all matter is exposed to certain points of reference energetically, and that those references are not killed by the passage of what we think of as time, because it unfolds upon itself. So what I would really say to people is, and we can take this on a very human level, that we think, oh, even in this lifetime, oh, I wish that hadn't happened, or now that's happened and I can't change it. But actually, we can change the past. We change it energetically by changing ourselves. And so we have access not only through our father's father's father, our mother's mother's mother. We've brought in their experiences become our genes, psychogenetically. So we are them, but we are not them. But we carry forth, that's called legacy, we carry forth from them, So time didn't exist there. We replicate in many, many ways, But we have the freedom of continually reinventing our experiences. We can move time. I think everyone has had an experience of feeling like time stopped for you, or suddenly you look up at a clock and say, wait, where did those 2 hours come? Where did they go? So time is very instrumental to our sense of belonging and our structure of the third dimensional world. But once we dream, once we move out of our body through our consciousness, time does not exist that way.
That's fabulous. And going back to my question with the galactic being, I wanted to understand more. In their dimension, do they usually communicate telepathically?
Yes, many of them do. Many of them do. And they converse telepathically because often they have group mind. So they merge, their consciousness merges. And but they also talk through light. They have many, many ways. They talk through sound. They're infinite groups of galactic beings that come from all over the multiverses.
And how can we connect with them?
I think it's very important for us to begin to do that. But to do that, we really want to connect with those that are more advanced than we are and that are sympathetic or care about our human species. Because galactics have different laws of energy. And so often when they try to communicate or connect with humans, they're kind of destructive. So we have to be able to say, this is the way we do it in the third dimension. You can't burn me by your radiance, for example. You can't carry me off someplace because we have the law of permission here, which we don't follow ourselves, but but it is there. And so all we have to do is very simple, is to, well, there's several ways. The most important way, as far as I'm concerned, is to connect with your galactic DNA. If you could imagine that you have galactic DNA, that opens for you that possibility. And it opens for you a possibility in a way that protects you as well. I've worked with a lot of people that were abductees, let's say. And so there's a lot of fear of galactics. They call them aliens. I don't like the word aliens. I prefer the word galactic because it allows us to be connected to each other.
And it includes them in our world.
And it includes them. And they are in our world, and we're walking around with their genetics and our genetics. They live under the earth. They're here everywhere. And so once we activate our own galactic DNA, it helps us to begin to make that kind of connection. But the other thing is to simply in your meditation, in your consciousness, just to invite them. And to do that, we want to take care of them as well. In other words, to say, we invite you, we love you, we honor you. Come to us and help us, and we will help you. Because we humans have something to give galactics as well. Many galactic species have lost the human emotions. They might be advanced, but they don't have emotions. And they're beginning to see that human emotions, for example, the human heart, is valuable to the evolution of the species. And so they're very interested in us. And our human heart broadcasts out into the cosmos. This is called the planet of the heart. It's part of the reason that we come here. So by inviting them in, we can begin to have those kinds of experiences. And people are doing that all over. And that's why all over the world, people in mass groups are beginning to see UFOs or lights or things like that. We have a rich history in every culture, of connection to galactics. Now, for me, I always think it's important whenever we reach our consciousness out to expand it, to use the support of our soul energy, which we call the higher self. And the higher self is the intuitive essence of the soul. It's your own inner voice. It's that part of you that knows, is this okay or is that not okay? You know? So when we use that, then we can really extend out and call to us those kinds of energies. I think most children have experiences of lights coming into their rooms. Children will draw pictures that look like galactics, you know, little antennas and things like that. And that's because they actually see through the veils into these other dimensions.
And I don't want to restrict into defining them into a form, but I do see a lot of pictures online, and different people have defined it in different forms. What do you think is the source of that imagination?
Well, I think that we come from that galactic DNA, so we have within our genetics, again, with this galactic DNA, that gives us a perspective, a way of communicating, of seeing it. So different people will see different groups, you know. One might see a little tiny being this way, one might see a tall, elegant, light being, and it depends on where they have had incarnations and the kind of things that they connect to, or the contracts and vows that we make on soul levels to come into bodies and perform things. I have worked again with people who have had galactic experiences from around the world, and the most amazing experience that I've had with that is that all of them, even when they're abductees and they are scared of it and it's terrified, but when you go into their own soul level, they discover that they are those beings that have abducted them, and that they have made contracts and vows to come into human form, to expose the human genetic encoding to their own group. It's a very shocking thing. But when they discover that, their fear of being abducted, that whole conversation falls away. And so their perspective becomes whatever they have experienced, you know. But you can't just say a galactic looks like this or this, because they look, I mean, we cannot count the ways that they take form.
So there are beings, there are infinite beings, even in both directions, as advanced as possible and as not so advanced as possible. And it's up to us what we attract.
That's right.
Into our life.
And what we want to do is attract those that can speed our own evolution. For example, on the planet right now, why do we fight? Because we have very constricted ideas about God. You know, the God particle gets stuck in almost all of our wars, or it becomes the pretext of all of our wars. So if we connected with galactics, we would be able to evolve our sense of the divine. And this is very important to us. Or what I think is very important is to discover ways of using energy without destroying our planet. We're destroying our planet right now. And this has happened through eons of time and eons of planets in multi-universes, you know, where people have had to actually leave the planet. Now, your children and your children's children will leave this planet. Right now, here in New Mexico, you can, we are getting ready to have the first station where people can actually go out to space. What will that do to our concept of ourselves as humans, ourselves on the planet Earth, ourselves as a part of a galaxy, etc.? And certainly ourselves in these kinds of illusions we have about God.
What do you think is the next step of evolution for us?
Well, we're in that next step right now. It's not coming, we're in it. And that is to recognize that we are a soul group, that we cannot destroy each other, that we cannot use violence as surviving. What we are right now, and the reason we have all come, and whether we're 2 or we're 82, we are the same composition that have come onto the planet at this time because we've been here many times before. And so we're in a juxtaposition in our evolution now, whereby humans had the illusion of survival. So we might have had many gods that we prayed to, the god of rain, the god of fertility, the god of this or that or the other. Protect us, or we'll make contracts and vows with you so that we'll be safe. Well, right now, as we begin to understand that time is an illusion, that we've had many bodies, we can change our perspective on things like that. So that we go from, I have to survive, and if I have to kill you to survive, whether I do that with my words, or I do that with my bombs, or I do that with taking things away from you, it's still, I have to survive. And the mandate that humanity has right now is go away from this fear, this survival. Move from fear to the honoring and the blessing of being embodied. And recognize that what happens to you happens to me. Now, just coming back from Asia, I've seen that environmentally. You know, the pollutions that have come from rather big countries have flooded into all the other countries. And so if somebody does something energetically that poisons our planet, we will all suffer for it. So we have to come to cooperate with each other.
We have to advance together and
We
not...
have to advance. You say it so beautifully. We have to advance. And we're advancing because we're getting what I call the cosmic boot. We're getting pushed into that because it matters what you do. And one of the things that my own higher self has taught me is something that I really love, which says, the more powerful you are, the more powerful I can be. And so I don't want to destroy your power. I want to applaud your power and support that so that the two of us could come together and blend our power or our strengths in a way that does create evolution, protects our planet, protects our children. All humans wish for the same things.
And I know one of your books is Ecstasy is New Frequency. Can you describe what is ecstasy for you?
Absolutely I can. Ecstasy, rapture, and bliss. Ecstasy is a state of consciousness when we suddenly forget about survival and we suddenly become part of something larger. Our bodies are electric. They are electric-magnetic energies. So when we become ecstatic, that electricity blasts through us. Most people never experience ecstasy except perhaps, if you'll forgive me, the moment of sexual orgasm, or the moment of death, something that shoves us out of our third-dimensional self into this blissful, a deep meditation. I've experienced something that's called samadhi, where there's just this oneness of the cosmos, and that's ecstasy. So ecstasy for you and me is when we suddenly, for a flash, for a moment, the self is forgotten, and yet the true self is merged with something bigger. And we feel that energy. We can't define it in mental images because it's too slow. It is an electrical current. It's a cosmic energy, and it's something that very few people experience, unfortunately. But it's something that's very important.
Is it same as cosmic orgasm?
Yes, it is, and that's definitely how I first experienced it. Which is, I'll tell the story. It was a time when I was sleeping in the desert with my children, and I was not partnered at the time. And I thought, well, that part of my life is done. I will never experience that human part again. And suddenly, I had an experience of cosmic orgasm, which is something that occurs throughout the whole, not only the nervous system in the body, but the acupuncture meridians in the body, the 72,000 nadis that are in the body and around the body. All of them went into this cosmic high frequency, electric frequency. And I actually, this is true, I actually levitated up. And I was having this tremendous experience. I'm blowing out your camera. So there we were with my children, 5 of my children. I was actually pregnant at the time, but I didn't know it. So that being has experienced a lot of very wonderful things while in the womb. But so I was feeling that, I would never connect with someone again, and I was kind of reviewing my life. And suddenly I had an experience of cosmic orgasm. And it was so powerful that it levitated my whole body. And I was in a purple sleeping bag, and I was having this waves upon waves of cosmic energy blasting through. I completely lost the sense of an individuated body, or parts of a body, because it was monumental. And then all of a sudden, when my body had reached the limit of what it could stand without falling apart, I realized that I was levitated like a board, and that my sleeping bag was falling on the sides like this, over the sides of my body. And once I realized that it was doing that, then I realized I was levitating, and I floated back down. But not many, but other people have experienced that as well. And again, it's just another opportunity to recognize that we're so much more than we think we are, and that this human vehicle can do things and know things that we never realized were possible. So when we begin to get into our body, but get into our body in a way that connects to our light body, it changes our experience, our incarnation of the soul.
Would you say that that is same as awakening, or awakening is different from...
Oh, that's a kind of awakening. We can use the word awakening on many, many levels. I think typically when someone says awakening is like enlightenment at some level. Maybe not as far along the path as enlightenment, which people tend to think is an end point. It's a beginning point. There are no enlightened beings, not even the great cosmic beings who are still hanging around our earth. Evolution never ends. It never ends. And so enlightenment is just taking yourself onto a new stage of possibility. You're a beginner. So awakening is really awakening to those possibilities. And when we begin to awaken, the crucial point of awakening is that it changes our sense of self. We begin to realize that we do belong to something more. So a lot of our fears about being human, or how will I survive, or how will I make money, or all of the daily things, are influenced by a bigger arena. And so this awakening begins to pull us into new arenas, into new levels of questioning, of experiencing, of opening up. And so I think that the humans on the planet of this time are going through that kind of awakening. Everyone is. In India they have a word Mahatma, which means great soul. And I always say, we are all great souls. We are all great souls. We are just playing a part here. And we play that part not only for our own personal evolution, but also for the evolution of humanity and for our planet. Whether you're a starving person in Africa or a drug person face down in the street, you're still a great being. You are still a divine being. You are just giving yourself that experience for some purpose. Once we get that point, then awakening becomes something that happens very quickly for everyone.
And how can we stay in that state of mind of... I know awakening is just one experience, but how can we stay in a state of mind of ecstasy?
Well, we could not possibly stay in the mind of ecstasy because it would blow out our human circuits. It's too strong. But we can. That's why my higher self always says ecstasy, rapture, bliss. We can come into a place of bliss and rapture, but it is swinging up and swinging down. And the crucial point of those kinds of experiences that everyone can have is to bring with you, if you have a moment of illumination or a moment of connecting or feeling the divine by looking at a lake or a mountain or being in nature, is to pull that energetically into your daily life. My higher self always talks about it in terms of anchoring the sky. My great-grandfather lived with us when he was 92, and he kept saying it over and over and over again, anchor the sky, anchor the sky. Now I know what he meant. I didn't know for a long period of time what he meant. But he meant that the cosmic energies, if you anchor them in, whether in a galactic format or in a nature format, whatever format, it will expand your potential. And that's the purpose of it. It's not to feel like you have a daily life and then a spiritual life, but to put them together. And to put them together in the human form. So that whether we're making love or we're making money or whatever we're doing, that higher consciousness is always available to us. So it's just a matter of where you place your focus. If you find yourself scrappling, and that's why people talk about meditation so much. My higher self says, life is meditation, and meditation is life. It's just a matter of where you focus your consciousness.
It's to energetically remember that experience you had while with awakening, and
you use that instead of going back to that experience, because you can't really go back to it in content. You can go back to it in energy. So you carry the energy with you, and that energy begins to radiate out from you, and it creates a whole new world of contacts, of experiences, so that we build on every experience that we have, even the ones that we think are negative. They have a purpose in terms of our evolution. So we use life. I personally have had 6 near-death experiences. 6. You might say I'm a slow learner, where they've said, she's dead, and then I've come back. And the thing that has come back with me is use life. Use every experience. Never wait for tomorrow, for the future, but always be here, and whatever is going on now, use that and contribute to it. And that brings us a sense of peace and balance and safety.
And I know we are far from that where we are awakened as a planet. All of us are in that state of mind, and we have a connection with the galactic, a strong galactic connection.
Yes.
What do you think is the next step of evolution after that? I know we are very far from that, but what is your
or not. Enlightenment happens in a flicker. The same with awakening. It's not a long process. Everyone says, oh, you must meditate, or you must pray, or you must read, or you must practice. Well, yes, but that's only because we're entertaining ourselves. Actually, at any second, you can pull away the veil and experience something much bigger. The galactic framework allows us a template of something that's so much bigger that we can move to. And so I think our next step is that the more we focus on the unseen or the cosmic, the more and the quicker we will shift as a species and as a planet. We must begin to realize that there's something so much bigger and that we belong to it. We have a purpose there. And the purpose is not, I'm a good guy because I've done this and this, so therefore I will have nirvana or go to heaven or any of that. But to feel a sense of self that is not afraid, that is not in fear, that finds a moment of peace. That will allow us to have those experiences. Some people say, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. My higher self says, well, who is the student and who is the teacher? We interweave all of the time. And so what's happening now is that in this frustration of uncertainty, we're beginning to look, we're beginning to wake up. We've been on automatic pilot for a long time. Mm-hmm. And now, because we're getting the cosmic boot, we're beginning to say, well, I need a new solution, or I need to do something else, or I need to experience something else. So that is a seed that's been placed. And like it or not, We are all going into that funnel of initiation, which will bring us awareness, it will bring us awakening, and we will use that awakening. And to be a human or to be incarnate will change completely. The way we live, the way we die, the way we move. We already can use our consciousness to go out of the body and be someplace else. When we talk about connecting with galactics, we have to expand that consciousness that way. But we have to carry with it a human element. And that's why I say when you want to connect with galactics, you want to imagine that you have that connection there. And you want to invite. You want to create a magnetism inside you that says, I invite you. And I invite you because I honor and I love you, which is a great way to relate to all humans, never mind galactics or anyone else.
And what would be the next step after that, once we reach there?
The next the next step after that, of course, will be that reality will be multidimensional. It will not be third dimensional. So we will have access to many other planets, to many other places. We will be able to not only learn from more advanced civilizations, but we will be able to give a gift to them as well. So there's going to be a new integration, and it's coming now, so that we free ourselves from all. We talked about the freedom of body, from being in body. We are not our bodies. We are not our bodies, we're not our emotional bodies, but we are using them. And as we use them, we can learn to use them in a way that allows us access to many dimensions, which will quickly change what it is to be human and to be incarnate, to be in the material world.
And with what's going on in our current material world, what is your perspective on where everything is going?
It's going to closure. We must learn that we cannot fight each other. We cannot use the cracking of the atoms. We did that at the time of Atlantis, and that brought us into repetition. Because the purpose of cracking the atom at that time was personal power. So we're at that place again. And as we learn to shift from that to a collective energy, there will be a very quick difference that goes on. So everyone feels, oh, look, we're in danger. We're poisoning our earth. We're poisoning our bodies. We're killing each other. But we're doing that only as a part of passage. We are an intelligent species. We will learn. We are learning. And we're beginning to learn that if you try to destroy me, that you will not win. We will all be in this together, and that's called karma, on one level. And so I'm very excited to be here at this time, because humans are in the process of finishing off a level of darkness. It's been called the Kali Yuga, this time of darkness, and we are going into a time of light. And to go into this time of light, we have to be able to move from this energy into a higher consciousness. And we are coming to that. We are coming to it. And for me, it's very exciting. I see the possibilities. I see it in children who are a different breed altogether. I see it everywhere. People are reaching for that place where the invisible, the immaterial, the material come together. And that's very exciting. And, yes, we are very fast coming to a place where we could destroy our life on this planet. I always say, don't worry, the planet will just get rid of the two-leggeds. I hope that we will leave this planet a better place.
And how do you feel about I don't want to get into the politics, but the situation we are in right now where...
I think it's wonderful. And we put ourselves there, and we put ourselves because around the world we must break free of this concept that the government, the male, the one with the power or the one with the money, or God will fix it or the galactics will fix it for us. Our main lesson right now is that we have within us the solutions. We have the wherewithal to find those solutions. And to do that, we have to use each other, use the galactics, use the gods, but discern in a new way. So all of the things that are going on with governments, with politics right now, are about our awakening. We must, and we're making a mistake right now in the United States, because we're saying, just like teenagers do, we're saying what we don't want, but we're not putting our energy into what we want. And we're not influencing people through the power of our consciousness. Yes, it's wonderful for us to find voice and a collective voice, but that voice needs to go to a higher level if we want to make the changes. So I applaud all of this because I know it's transient. We are going to learn that if you want something new or you want it to be different, you must have the solution. You must say, I envision this, instead of I don't want that.
And this is a new beginning towards empowering ourselves instead of putting so much power into the government.
That's right.
And the outside.
I don't even use the word empower because it always implies that something's going to do it for us. The way most people use it, you're using it as the self, which is what I mean exactly. But people always have the idea that if something happened, it would empower us. No, we will empower us. The galactics know the answers to our energetic problems. But it is ourselves that have to reach out and make that happen. It's not going to be dropped upon us. And this is perfect because humans have been taught to be victims and to be helpless, particularly through religions and governments, any kind of control system, cultural system. If you make people afraid, they will do what you want. And we humans have in our genetic encoding that will of freedom. And so, free will. And so we must learn how to use that. And that's what I see. I see that we're beginning to recognize that we can't just sit back and say, it's because of you that this is the problem. No, it's because of ourselves. And we don't have to beat ourselves up. I'm not interested in blame. I'm interested in, well, what's the solution? I had a school for a long time, and we encompassed spiritual understanding, not religious understanding, but spiritual understanding, consciousness. It was called global consciousness, in with whatever you're learning, mathematics or technology of some kind. And so whenever we would give, here is the way this has been done, or this is a piece of information, then I would say, now, give me something new from it. Give me something new. That you can take that piece of information and mix it with something and come up with something new. And that's what we need to do now as humans. So I see all of these situations as just the fuel for our enlightenment.
That's exciting to know.
It is exciting to think of it in that way, because it reminds us that we have purpose here. And to express that purpose, to find the voice, we have to connect with each other.
And I know you're far from that, Chris, but do you ever experience lower emotions?
Not very often, really, because I have, through my own work, through my own technology of consciousness, I have learned how to get out of that. So, like anyone else, I can say, oh, this is not moving fast enough, and then I can use my technology of consciousness to shift. Part of that is learning how to see beyond the future, but to see the potential. Mm-hmm. One of the things that personally my own higher self has been teaching me over the last 5 years is there's not one answer. There are many answers. Therefore, there are many solutions and many possibilities. How many can you find? That's been the challenge that's been given to me by my own inner voice. And so, if I have a moment of despair, let's say, because I can see outcomes, or potential outcomes. But I've learned how to realize that we have to extend our awareness so that everyone else can have a place in that. in one of my books, I was talking about your projects or are being successful, and one of the things that my higher self says is, first you want to ask inside, is this mine to do? And is this the moment? You know, because in that way there is a time. But I wouldn't call it time, I would call it a synergistic flow of energy. It's just like if you want to call somebody on the phone, if you were to stop and say, should I call them now? And listen to your own answer, you would find that every time you call someone, it is the exact moment they're thinking of you, or they are available for your idea, they're present. But if you just go, I need to do this, and we rush along that way, that's that thing, that's that illusion that it's what we do that counts. And having 6 near-death experience and being with so many people at the moment of their death, I can tell you that all of the things that you've done will make no difference at all at the moment of your death.
And I know one of your books is Ageless Body.
Yes.
Could you explain us the concept of ageless body and how we can work towards it?
Yes. The major concept is to come into a conscious relationship with your body. Your body knows why everything's happened. Your body is the vehicle of knowing your many incarnations. Through the body, through the mind of the cell, we can perpetrate that opening that allows us a greater volume of knowledge. When I wrote that book, that was my idea, is that if you could learn to listen to your body and to honor your body, you would never be sick. You would never suffer. You would be able to use the purpose of coming into form. And, you know, all sentient beings will always come back into form. Nothing is ever done, because the unmanifest must come into form in order to evolve. And we are a part, our experiences are part of that evolving energy. And so we go into incarnation and we come out, back and forth for eternity, beyond eternity. It's that kind of possibility that's there for us at this moment. And so I began by looking at the endocrine system. And I rushed that book out because I wanted to be the first one to talk about that. Because the endocrine system is the threshold between our physical body and our light body. And it's so sensitive to light. And it orchestrates how our physical body functions and our emotional body functions and our mind body functions through our endocrine system. So if we use our body as the vehicle of consciousness, we can change everything. So when we look at incarnations of the soul, for example, where are you holding this great wisdom you had? Or where are you holding in your body the echo of that death? Or whatever the qualities or the mishaps that you had. They are literally in your body. And when we say, why does this person get a disease and another one doesn't? You know, you're all exposed to the same thing, but only certain people get it. It's because that particular experience in the body facilitates their growth. And so the body is essential. And so in my work, everything that we do, ask your body where it holds that memory, where it holds that experience or that residue. And once we activate that in the body, that's what creates the magnetism of consciousness to bring back pure energy to amplify that possibility. So our bodies are very essential. So my idea of an ageless body was not, can you never have wrinkles? But that the body performs for you on all levels. It can become light body. We have templates of humans who could bilocate. I have had these experiences myself. Levitate, bilocate, come back from the dead, do all kinds of wonderful things. Every human can do these things. So when we talk about what's the future of humanity, my vision is that we become conscious beings, and through that consciousness, we can, if we need to be at another place in the planet, we can go there and use that as in a purposeful way. So it's very exciting to see the body outside of, well, we're born, we struggle, and then we get old and die. That's an illusion. We don't have to do that.
And for someone who is new to this world and let's say they are struggling with finances or relationships, how do they begin with, where do they begin with trying to connect with their higher self when they are not able to see beyond
Yes.
what's going on?
Well, of course, the only way to see beyond their struggle with money or their struggle with relationship is to come above the fray. And the way we literally come above the fray is that we connect with our own inner voice. So, and we look at the world in a different way. If we're always looking at the world in terms of how can I win, success in every level, which is a very limited concept of purpose, but rather we look at, okay, I have this relationship, and this person triggers something in me. It tells a story about me. So, for example, this is one of the reasons that I've been doing incarnational work for 61 years, because we can find the answer. For example, what if you, and we do this, we call it clearing a person. What if you looked at other lifetimes you shared with that person? You would discover why you feel the same way that you do now with them. Why you have the same themes with them. They overwhelm you or you overwhelm them or whatever that is. That's the way that you change it. If you have trouble with abundance, if you continue to say, well, how can I get more money? You probably never will. Because you are looking at it as an impossibility. You have to look at it as, I have the creativity to discover new ways. So I will ask my higher self, my own inner voice, to begin to orchestrate for me a magnetism that brings me energies that I can then begin to apply. So one of the exercises in consciousness that I always say to people is, first you must access a place in you, an experience, a memory in you where you felt absolutely abundant. It might have been the luxury of looking at a flower, or being in water, or being in nature, or whatever. And at that moment, you weren't missing anything. You weren't feeling the victim. You can, this is the wonderful thing about the laws of energy, you can take that moment, dissolve the experience of it in terms. So if you can give yourself a moment in which you are free of the limitation, when you feel abundant, when you feel, I could have anything, I have everything, and you feel that happiness that comes with that, you can superimpose what you felt there onto, I'm struggling with my money now. And suddenly, magically, your life begins to change. So it's using consciousness in a way that allows us to shift our perception. So instead of feeling that I only have a job and I only make this amount of money, no, that's not true at all. Superimpose a sense of I have everything, and I am so grateful for that. And I can feel what that energy feels like. That's when suddenly money comes to you, or you get an idea, or things begin to change. We are the source of our wealth on all levels of our being. And I think that part of the struggles we're having now on the planet is just a way of helping us to get out of systems that don't support all of humanity, that don't allow us to see how we can share.
I just wanted to share my one observation. I wanted to get your perspective on it. There are some people I've seen that they are not necessarily aligned with the energies, but they are still able to create abundance in their life.
But that's a question everyone asks. Why do they get it? They're not conscious. They steal from others. They don't even try, and it just is handed to them. And so I would look at that in a larger framework. It may be that at some point, and it could be the moment of their death, they have a flash and they see that they could do it differently. Maybe they don't, but I would call that the law of karma. And that is cause and effect, action and reaction. It can be positive, it can be negative. So those kind of people that have it that way, it may be coming because they need to learn something from that. So if they suffered as victims before, and they gave themselves the experience of having everything, and I've worked with many people who have tremendous wealth, for example, and very often they're so afraid of losing it that they don't enjoy their lives. They don't give to others. They don't use life because they are still playing out an experience they had before. So when we release that experience, they have an awakening. So it's very important for us to know that's their story. And whatever brought them to that was something that might have been horrible for them. Or they're rewarding themselves. You know, there is that flow that comes. And so my higher self has taught me to not bother with the negative. Discern that it's there. How can you use it? But don't make that an important thing. So I never place my energy on what they're doing. I always place my energy on what I'm doing. You know, I could be happy with, I can get very ecstatic actually because I love flowers, for example. I love nature, and I can get very ecstatic as a simple being, you know, and that serves my life. You know, so it's always our perception of are we safe again? Are we safe? Do we have enough? Is who we are enough? You know, can we be happy? Once we're happy, that opens us up to allow us to imagine. And so I always say to people, imagine that you already have that wealth or you already have that perfect relationship. What does it feel like to you? If you can access the feeling, then you will begin to trigger a permission that allows it to magnetize itself to you.
Can you share more about your global activation program?
Yes, thank you. Because for me, talking about where we're going in our evolution, we're going from the struggle of ourselves to collective cooperation, to realizing that part of the reason we're here is about our whole planet and the people in it and the earth and the nature. And so we know now, whether we argue about global warming or not, what we do know is that we humans are destroying our earth. We can't argue that. We have so much pollution in the air, it's making people suffer. We're doing so many destructive things. So the concept that I have is, it's called human potential and global responsibility. And the idea is global solutions. And so this global initiative starts with nature. And I've been doing this for a long time. I learned it from the Hopis. We can call the rain, and it can rain. I have proven this. We can work with nature. So, and it comes back to us. It's just like when you heal another, it heals yourself. So as we begin to look around on our earth and say, you know, this pollution is not working, we can dissolve it. So the concept is using consciousness to take from matter and de-manifest it. It's the same law as manifesting. The Hopis, when they needed rain for their corn, they would go inside into their kivas and use their pahas, their feathers, and they would call the rain, and it would rain. And I've been able to teach little children to do that, and by using their consciousness. And so then it occurred to me that we could use consciousness to influence that. And that if we got together as groups, we could, if you, for example, look out and it's polluted, it's gray today, and you can't breathe, like in Los Angeles, if you put your consciousness to imagining, okay, I'm pushing out of matter that pollution, and this is, you know, quantum physics, that the observed is changed by the observer. So if you are observing the pollution, push it out of matter. Push it out into a different energy and imagine a clear sky. So we can do that with things that we can see, and that helps us. I've noticed that by practicing that, I've gotten much better at doing that. I can dissolve a chemtrail with my mind. I can bring the sun. I can do these things, and I can do it much better when there's a group of us, of course. But so then, for example, we have a problem with carbon dioxide. We don't need to argue about whether humans did it or not. We have too much of it, and we need to get rid of it because it's affecting our planet. So we can use our consciousness to demanifest the carbon dioxide. And by doing so, we can cool our earth and bring our earth into balance. So we're helping the earth. We're not controlling the earth. And so it's using consciousness not for the sake of the self, but for a bigger whole. Not saying, well, we'll do it because we like this group, but we don't like that group. But that we are a part of this planet, which is a part of a solar system, which is a part of a galaxy. And so we can use the power, not of thought, but of pure energy consciousness to change matter. We can do this. We have templates of it for thousands of years. But we always thought that only the enlightened could do it. No, anybody can do it. I could take 5-year-olds and say, I'm going to show you how to discover that there's a water line here. And I could teach them to do it. You know? And then, if you can do that, how many other ways could you do it? So I think it's a very exciting time. And I hope that all of you that are listening will go onto my site, chrisgriscom.com, and join this global initiative so that I send out little messages. I would like to have millions of people. Imagine, millions of people going, let's clear this carbon dioxide, or let's get rid of this horrible pollution in the air, and seeing that they could actually do it just by using their consciousness. How would that change what it is to be human, and our sense of self and our purpose in life? It's time to do things that we never thought we could do, and to discover that we can.
Thank you for sharing this deep wisdom, Chris.
It's my honor.
Is there a special message you have for the audience today that you would love to share?
There's so many messages that I would love to give the audience today. But it's to really look inside and know that you have a higher self, that you know more than you think you know, that you have wisdom, that you have purpose in every experience. You are not victims. The world needs you. Expand your consciousness and feel the grace and the gratitude of recognizing that you are part of a huge whole, and that you don't have to do it. You can simply open your consciousness and use this beautiful faculty that we have to make a difference in this incarnation of your soul, to evolve and to know that you're doing it. It's so easy. It's not difficult. You were born. You were born to do it. And you are not alone.
I can't thank you enough for coming on this program, Chris. I just feel so fortunate I got to meet you in person.
And I feel fortunate to have met you, Suma, because you are playing a very powerful role in the world. We need to be able to talk to each other. We need to be able to give each other ideas and support. And you are creating that, something that I could not do. So it is I that am grateful to you, truly.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And let us know that spirituality, that consciousness is full of laughter, it's full of light.
It's fun.
It's simple and it's fun. Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. To find out more about Chris, please go to chrisgriscom.com or lightinstitute.com.
Yes.
I'm Suma with infinitebeing.tv. And if you like this video, please remember to subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Yes, indeed.